If you ever feel bad about your sports fandom, you can take comfort knowing that at least you're not the Chicago Bears. What an unholy mess that was last night on Thursday Night Football. I should have stuck with the college football. The bowl games were great, Jackson. Lucas has tried to tell me year after year after year, what are you doing? Stop. You don't have to watch the Thursday Night Football game every time it's on just because it's the NFL.
I don't think there has been a more uninteresting Thursday Night Football game this year.
Woo, that was a stinker.
Honestly, if you gave me the Thursday night slate beforehand, I might have picked this one for the least intriguing matchup.
No, that's not true. Geno Smith is a good quarterback. He's just wholly betrayed by his offensive line and his defense. Largely everything else that's not Geno Smith.
His defense played great last night.
Oh, well, it's just because they played the Chicago Bears 6-3. The final. Good morning. Welcome in. Happy Friday. You made it. 3 hours between us and the weekend. Maybe not for you, but we'll help you get through it a little bit faster. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to get in there, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch is the F&M Bank chat available for you. Tyler Dial greets me on YouTube this morning with Buck. We lost to that team. That's right. That's right. But I don't know. The Bears that the Titans played, and maybe it was because you were so caught up in the way that the Titans lost that season opener. God, doesn't that feel like 1,000 years ago? I feel like this season has aged everybody collectively 10 years over the course of 3 months. The offseason will be a welcome break. Also, for the Bears fans who have many, many questions, have the number 1 overall pick at quarterback, and still only have 4 wins to account for that, and are losers of 9 straight. See, a rookie quarterback, try to warn you guys, a rookie quarterback does not fix everything if your team is awful and if your coaching staff is suspect. And I understand that the Bears have already done the thing. Sam Phelan was wandering around the Titans practice facility the day after Thanksgiving, the day that the Bears fired Matt Eberflus, saying that the witch is dead because he's a Bears fan. But how much better do things feel when you fire a coach in season without the proper support system in place for a young quarterback, for a coaching staff? Either way, the Bears, man, just an unholy suffering. 6-3, like I said, Seattle keeps their playoff hope alive. The Bears are long since dead. And then even, did a single one among you who was either brave enough or stupid enough to stick with that game as long as I did up until the end? We had a 6 overtime bowl game, and then I wander over to Amazon Prime for that. Terrible. Did any of you think that the Bears would even be capable of tying it up? Because I couldn't have the least bit of confidence in a team like that, having seen them play the amount of games that they've played all year. Thank God it's Week 17 for Bears fans, so they don't have to be on national television anymore to watch that situation. But Chicago totals 179 yards of offense. It's the 4th lowest. It's not even the worst. 4th lowest this season, and managed only a field goal in its final home game of the season in front of a fan base that started, like you, with a lot of hope, a lot of optimism, and just came crashing down. It's crazy. I don't know what the Bears are going to do this offseason. I don't know that they've got the right people in place to make those decisions, because they have been for so long such a bad franchise, which is such a shame because their fan base is great.
You think Ryan Poles survives this?
I don't know, man. That's the thing about speculation on hot seat with any of these franchises. You have no earthly idea how to predict an ownership group's behavior, because they're just, other than Jerry, they're just not out there very much for you to have any clue on what these people's tendencies might be when it comes to who the hell is running their organizations. I was just listening to Diana's podcast, Diana Rossini, of The Athletic, the podcast called Scoop City, her and Chase Daniel, the former NFL quarterback. She's saying that Joe Shane, the Giants general manager, is safe, which is insane. The guy that brought back Daniel Jones and let Saquon Barkley go to the Eagles, that guy's safe? Now, there's 2 weeks left to go, and maybe something happens with the Mara ownership, the Mara family, who run the Giants that they decide, no, this is enough. But that's crazy to me. It's a foregone conclusion for any one of us of sound mind, that the people running the New York Giants beyond the ownership group would not be safe after a terrible, terrible season. But you're going to bring that guy back after everything that was aired on this offseason Hard Knocks that makes them look like dopes.
But you think Dable's gone? Or have they come out and said anything about Dable? Or are they just going to use him and Jones as a scapegoat?
I don't know, man. Just know that a lot of these jobs, and we're going to talk about this because Bill Barnwell, we brushed over it yesterday before I had a chance to really read it. Bill Barnwell of ESPN, not a reporter, but a columnist, went about ranking the best to worst potential 2025 job openings, and he had the Titans in the ranking. It's a first-year head coach. That's unthinkable in most situations, except for anybody watching this team. But just because, it doesn't pass the eye test, and neither do the Giants or the Jags or the Raiders, there's no telling who among these people, there will be a surprise retention, there will be surprise firings. That's how these cycles always go. Because, again, you have no idea what these people are going to do. Other than that, we got Saturday football. We'll have to wait until next week to get back into the college football playoff mode of things. Titans are heading down to Jacksonville. What is your bigger rooting interest today is going to be one of the things that we talk about. Draft position is one thing, understandably so. Many people, I'm sure, are ready for the offseason after what this season has been, but always there are things to play for outside of draft position. So we'll get into where your greater rooting interests lie later on in the show. Was that the worst NFL game of the season last night between the Seahawks and the Bears? It's the worst one that I've gotten a chance to watch.
Really? Titans-Jags ending up there? That was a bad football game.
It was so bad.
Both of those football games, I would put those in the same breath. I think they were equally terrible.
Do you know that I don't even think about them when I think about the worst games, just because it's become so routine how badly they lose. I'm serious, Jackson. Like that, the Titans hadn't even crossed my mind when I'm talking about the worst NFL games that I've watched this season, because I just, I go into these things expecting for something terrible to go wrong. Now, you got another shot at a Jags team that's not good, and you've got a different quarterback. So there's no excuses for the kind of red zone struggles that they had against Jacksonville last time around when that team came to Nissan Stadium, didn't score a point for 3 quarters, then scored 10 in the fourth, with you incapable of converting on a single red zone trip. That was one of the more damning Will Levis performances before the bottom fell out against the Cincinnati Bengals. How do you handle it this time around? Because everybody's watching this. Especially now, we'll get into this here in just a second, the idea of the lack of parity in this year's NFL, where there are so many bad teams, and there are a lot of the conferences are top heavy, basically. There's no really solid middle that you've become accustomed to in the last, I'd say 15 years, 10 years of NFL football. They've successfully structured it for parity, but I'm having a hard time thinking about a season where there were just so many clearly bad teams, and where everything at the top of most of these divisions, there's still some things to play for in Week 17, and we'll go through those playoff situations for you here in just a couple of minutes. But I have no idea what's going to happen. But Jags Titans at Nissan Stadium a couple of weeks ago, it belongs in the category of 6-3. I don't know. 6-3 just seems so much uglier. At least there was an offensive touchdown.
Yeah, but at least in the 6-3 game, in between the 20s, you still had Caleb Williams doing some fun stuff.
He did make some really nice throws towards the end, which is going to be maddening to Bears fans, because that was good for all of 4 wins and not even an offensive touchdown. The play calling sequence at the end, where they're throwing it, they're getting ready to try and set themselves up for a 57-yard field goal, and they just keep taking deep shots. Not a single solitary person. Is there a worse NFL quarterback when it comes to body language right now than Caleb Williams?
No, but it's not surprising.
He's openly miserable, though. I don't know,
Wouldn't
man.
you be?
Sure, but I'm not the Chicago Bears quarterback.
You're lucky to not be.
Agreed.
Be thankful you're here with me instead of up there with him.
Okay, let's not get crazy with it. Of course, anybody would be miserable to be the Chicago Bears quarterback right now. But I don't know, man. It would not inspire me to see Caleb Williams out there, slumped shoulders, head tilted back, rolling his eyes after damn near every play, because he knows the thing that we all know, that they are hopeless at this point in time. How clear their path forward is going to be one of the more interesting talking points of the offseason. Obviously, there's a great many teams. We talked about the Giants, the Titans here locally. People are looking around at them and curious about what they're going to do, if for no other reason, just to get to the end of the season at this point for all of these teams, man. It's been tough. It really has been tough, and you don't wish it as lightly as you have to take it if you're a fan or somebody who's around it on a daily basis or still subjecting yourself to the day-to-day goings-on of one of these teams. It's an awful situation to be in as a coaching staff, as a front office, as players. Nobody's happy to be in these positions, obviously, that they are. At least fans have the hope of the draft and the offseason of all the different fixes that can be provided for the people on these rosters and the people running these things. Man, it's not easy to go through. So I wouldn't wish that on anybody at this point, much less to be a Bears fan. Coming up next, let's talk about the rest of the NFC North, because that's a compelling division finish that you can keep an eye on in Week 17, and also a rooting guide for Titans fans this upcoming week, including that date at Jacksonville. 615-737-1045, the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. I thought you were joking when you said you were going to do this bit.
I told you I was going to do it, and you had no objections beforehand.
We so badly, again, you can't tell him this, but we so badly need Lucas back. Oh
my God.
We made it through yesterday without any major hiccups. And then today, immediately the show falls apart. Jackson, what time did I leave the house today?
9:50.
And you were sweating. You thought.
I was preparing a show open. It was going to be the best show open in this show's history.
I can't imagine. For those of you that don't know, he's a very sweaty individual, Jackson.
I'm not right now. I'm actually pretty cool. It's nice and cool back here.
It's a personal record for me. I made it in 8 minutes today.
It is like traffic is nothing right now.
Yeah, there's nobody out there.
Don't do that next week. Actually, Lucas will be back.
Lucas will be back. It'll be fine. See, Jackson thought he was going to have to start the radio show without me. I can't imagine how bad that would be.
It would be my last day at 104.5 The Zone. I'd go out swinging, though.
I kind of want to do that to you one time. Just, I'll be here, but I just won't let you know that I'm here. I'll just be outside the door. I'll make sure that the radio show has officially started and that we let you go. I don't know how long you would make it, though. How long do you realistically think you would make it through a segment before you ran out of gas?
Until I got a phone call and instinctively went to go get it and then stopped talking, and there was just dead air.
Oh, goodness. We need Lucas back. I forgot to tweet the polls this morning. Don't worry, I'm doing it now.
I forgot to tweet the show.
Yeah, well done. It all goes straight to hell. No speed bumps when Lucas goes out of town. But don't worry, he'll be back on Monday. So he played the Game of Thrones Open. Welcome back to the show, by the way, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is the number. What's the most compelling division to keep an eye on right now? It's week 17. Most teams, because we've played a fair amount of games at this point between Christmas and Thursday night football, most teams have things relatively in hand. They know their fate, right? They know they're locked into a postseason spot or going to, at this point, have won their division. There's a lot of have-nots in the NFL this year, so a lot of these teams have been on the couch for multiple weeks at this point, including the local professional football team. And the standings are still compelling. But when you look at the various divisions right now, what are you most paying attention to? Just as an objective football fan at this point. You'll watch the Titans on Sunday. I'm sure a good percentage of you. I don't know about most of you at this point, but maybe you will, maybe you won't. What else are you watching for as an NFL fan there's bowl games, but there's no college football playoffs to kind of get in the middle of this stuff this weekend. What's the most compelling thing that you're watching as a neutral party here? Maybe you're not a neutral party. I know we do a lot of Titan stuff. I know it's a really popular NFL town because we've got so many damn transplants running around in Nashville, specifically Nashville Metro at this point. I can't speak for everywhere that the frequency reaches, but maybe you're not an objective party. Maybe you're watching this with a rooting interest. What's the most compelling divisional finish right now in the NFL? It's tough for me to not look at the two North divisions because the Steelers have now. Do you realize the Steelers have lost 3 straight?
Yeah, they've struggled as of late.
Mike Tomlin went from war hero feels a bit strong given the implications of that, but Coach of the Year candidate Mike Tomlin, once he gets his winning record, things seem to really fall out a little bit. Now, Russ is making some dumb decisions in these games. The Steelers' inability to get a pass rush over the weekend against Patrick Mahomes, that was pretty surprising. As well, to see the kind of things that they've been able to lean on all year falter a little bit as we get towards the most important time and critically important for them.
Their schedule has also gotten much more difficult.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs are the 3 teams they've lost to.
Yeah. No,
I want to say those teams have lost a combined 6 games or something like that.
You're playing for a Super Bowl, though, and we're trying to figure out, do you have it? Do you have it this year? Because inevitably, they will have to see. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a wild card. Or they could continue to win or try to pursue winning their division, even though the Ravens are leading it right now at 11-5. Steelers 10-6 at this point. Losers of 3 straight, while the Ravens have won 3 straight. Not an ideal time for Pittsburgh to kind of lose that steam. I'm trying to figure out whether they can beat the Ravens or the Chiefs right now. And right now we're looking at one sample size where they did get one on Baltimore, but that was not a close game.
They haven't been competitive against against three teams that I would call contenders at this point. And this is where your argument about playoff contenders, if they make the playoffs, I don't think Pittsburgh right now is a contender, even if they make. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs. They've clinched. But I don't see them as a contender because they're not even really competitive. They lose by 18 to the Chiefs. They lose by 17 to the Ravens and 14 to the Eagles.
Yeah,
these haven't been games between contenders. This has been clearly overmatched teams. I mean, beating the Steelers.
It's been pretty disappointing because I just want to see somebody give the Chiefs a game, right? I want to see and plenty of teams. I mean, Carolina gave the Chiefs a game this year, but now they seem to have turned it on at the most obvious time. Like they're just slow playing us all year long. We all look like dopes because you start doubting the Chiefs, myself included. I felt like they've looked more frail or more gettable than they've ever been, even though they've only got one loss on the year, and it's because Josh Allen is a Super Saiyan out there when he decides to be. And yet, are we just preparing ourselves mentally? I can't have a season like this one, an NFL regular season like this one, Jackson, and just see the Chiefs boringly roll to another Super Bowl. A third straight would be crazy. Now, we've talked about Baltimore being able to push them. When you've got an offense like that, the defense has kind of rounded itself out a little bit. We talked about the adjustments that they've made with Kyle Hamilton and Zach Orr coming into his own as a first-time play caller after you have the brain drain. Mike McDonald goes to Seattle. You lose a lot of pieces and parts on that coaching staff. It's tough. It's tough to maintain. But, man, I really wanted to see, and I think they're still capable. Like, Russ hasn't just completely disappeared, even though he's making some less great decisions as of late. And TJ Watt hasn't just disappeared, even though he wasn't able to be necessarily effective against the Chiefs a couple of days ago. I still think they've got some juice. I'd still consider them a contender, more so than last year, and they made the playoffs last year with Mason Rudolph. The other part of this is the NFC North, which has been, outside of the Bears, we talked about the Bears, it's been the most fun division of the NFL season, and it's going to come down to the wire again.
Think about this. A team with 11 wins isn't even in the running to win the division with 2 games to go. Do
you know what I would do for 11 wins? After the way the last 3 seasons have gone, it seems like an unachievable mountain to climb right now, and it would be, given that this team that we're around on a daily basis has 12 losses. But Lions, 13-2, Vikings 13-2, the aforementioned 11-win team, the Green Bay Packers 11-4 right now. They're pushing it. The Vikings are a wagon. See, this is the thing though that impacts locally beyond just talking about, all right, what are you watching this offseason? How many Titans fans out there, and you're welcome to call 615-737-1045. How many of you want Sam Darnold this offseason? They've won 8 in a row. I don't think it's a given that just because J.J. McCarthy's there that they're going to let him walk this offseason. I kind of think they'd be crazy to do it. Isn't this a little bit of the reverse of what Atlanta just safeguarded themselves against? You pay Kirk Cousins in the offseason. You give him a contract that makes it clear to everybody that Kirk Cousins, coming off an Achilles I don't know, was he 36 to start the season or did he turn 36 this year?
I want to say he turned 36 this year.
Either way, he's currently 36 years old, and they knew that going in. They gave him a contract with $100 million guaranteed.
180, right?
He was going to be the starter. Nobody disputed this until the draft and they took Michael Penix 8th overall. And people, Lucas isn't the only one, but Lucas was the most irate about it. I remember the Friday after the first round coming in here being like, what is Atlanta doing? They're wasting everybody's time. They took Michael Penix, a quarterback with the 8th overall pick, while paying Kirk Cousins all the money that they gave him. What the hell are they doing? Nowhere franchise or directionless franchise. Okay. Until Kirk Cousins can't play. And Kirk was fine for a period of time. He's good enough to keep them in the divisional race. Penix, I don't know if it's going to be sustainable. Will Levis came out and debuted, had one of the best rookie debuts that anybody's ever had, and we understand how that's kind of tailed off. So Michael Penix even though he had success recently, doesn't mean that that's going to be sustainable. But at least it was a smart play by the organization to put themselves in that position to succeed. Now with J.J. McCarthy coming off an injury, not having played at all this season, and Sam Darnold there, all it takes is to franchise tag him. You don't have to give him a long-term contract. I kind of think they'd be nuts to let him walk. And there is a percentage of Titans fans out there that are just making it a foregone conclusion that Sam Darnold is going to be available in the market this year.
Yeah, I think J.J. McCarthy could be in kind of a Matt Leinart situation where the bridge quarterback came in and exceeded all expectations and was leading the team to winning football, to where he may not get an opportunity for a while.
TK says on YouTube two things. He said, Buck, would you let Lucas host the show for an 11 to 12 win season? I would, because it would be less work on me. Honestly, I've been jockeying for that. Lucas is a better point guard, and I'm a better two. But for some reason, they just keep letting me get in front of the microphone and run the show.
Because your name's on it.
Well, listen, Cowherd's kind of doing it too now. You notice that? Cowherd's having somebody point guard his show more often than not, and he's doing a lot of these segments. But this is a thing. This is a thing that's going on.
Tennessee running back Dylan Samson will forego his senior season and enter the 2025 NFL Draft.
Is that breaking news, or is it just like we knew that was happening, yeah?
There was talk that, he could come back. Obviously, he's a junior, so it is news that he is not coming back to Tennessee for his senior season.
Okay, so he's declared officially. He announced it on Instagram. It's one of the best careers for a running back in Tennessee history, and they've had some really talented players. 2024 SEC Offensive Player of the Year, as you well know. Projected draft stock, I don't know that anybody's talking about him as, he's certainly not a first-round pick. And there will be conversations as we move through the combine. It's a long way between now and April. But I think he's probably a top 10 running back.
He's probably a top 5 running back.
You think he's a top 5 running back?
In the draft? Absolutely.
I don't necessarily know that that's true. I'd give it a little wider berth than that. Tennessee fans were outraged that he wasn't one of the finalists for the I can't think of the running back award, the top running back in college football award off the top of my head right now. But that he wasn't even a finalist for that. I don't know that it's his foregone conclusion that he would be a top 5 player at his position in this particular draft class. But we'll have time to debate that. Record-breaking season for the Vols. Led the SEC in rushing, 1,491 yards, 22 touchdowns, 132 points scored, and 1,638 all-purpose yards for Dylan Samson in 2024. Unfortunate the way that his Tennessee career ends with that Ohio State playoff game, him missing a good deal with it due to injury. It's Doak Walker, thank you. The chat caught me for the running back award. He was not a finalist for the Doak Walker Award this year, and that was more surprising than the idea that he might not be a top 5 player at his position in this draft class. But either way, Dylan Samson making it official on Instagram that he will head to the 2025 NFL Draft. So we will see what becomes of that. So just getting back to the conversation that we were having about Sam Darnold, right? Foregone conclusion that he leaves Minnesota, or Titans fans wanting it to be a foregone conclusion, a percentage of Titans fans wanting it to be a foregone conclusion, that Sam Darnold hits the open market. You could still get him if they tagged him, but the idea of this team giving up picks to go get Sam Darnold, it's going to be ballpark $40 million this offseason, that's tough. Even as I'd be willing to acknowledge he's probably the best theoretical option. Minnesota may not even make it an option, though. That's the tough part about getting into the free agent discussion so early on, even before the season ends, even though I know Titans fans want the season to end. There's a bunch of different stuff that could happen between now and guys hitting the open market officially that would prevent this from looking as appealing on the open market as it might currently look on December the 27th. Easy to get ahead of yourself there. But how Minnesota finishes is going to be worth keeping an eye on. How Detroit finishes is going to be worth keeping an eye on with the NFL standings looking the way that they do. Lions, obviously, having only their second loss of the year. They've gotten right since then to prevent any kind of a losing streak. I don't know what's more compelling. I guess the NFC North's more compelling, but I love the Ravens and the Steelers, even though they've already played twice.
The Ravens and Steelers is such a fun rivalry. I think it's the best rivalry in the NFL.
Oh. I mean, I'm sure there's old school NFC East fans who would argue with you.
I think that's a summer topic that we could get into.
No, that is the worst form of sports talk radio that I do not want to do. I would rather.
We've done worse.
That's not true.
Probably.
I mean, yeah, but not on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, the show is a general happy accident. If we can get to the finish line at the end of every day, I'm happy. But not intentionally boring sports talk radio like let's talk about the best rivalries in the NFL. We can't find something else to do for 20 minutes? Stop.
It could be a 45.
You can't mail it in before football season ends. You have to at least help me get to the end of football season, all right?
Let's do it, bud.
It's not 2 more games. Come on, stay with me.
I'm with you, bud.
I don't think so.
Lucas left us, not me.
Well, Lucas was smart.
He abandoned us.
Lucas saw that. Well, Lucas, he was a little more chesty, I think, publicly than he was privately about how Tennessee's season was going to go. So I think he intentionally took vacation, preparing for the idea, the way that he used to for the Alabama game. He used to take the week off, take his vacation when Tennessee would play Alabama, just because he doesn't want to put himself through that. I think he did that feeling a little more BVS than he was letting on ahead of Ohio State.
On air, he was much more, you were right, much more chesty about Tennessee defeating the mighty Buckeyes.
Anyway, you're not getting the rest of the Minnesota Vikings roster if you get Sam Darnold. That's the difficult thing about the Sam Darnold proposition, because it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be better, but if you're going to pay that kind of money, it needs to change substantially the fortunes of your franchise. It works for Minnesota. I don't know that it works everywhere else. So we'll see how those things finish in Week 17 of the NFL season. There's a couple statistical things to keep an eye out for as well. I don't know how many people are in their fantasy football championships this week in Week 17. This is the first time. Have you ever played or won your fantasy football league?
I've won it before. I won it back in 22.
It would be more compelling if we could put money on it, but because there's, too many people that cover the NFL that don't want the optics of them betting on the NFL or having a financial interest in betting on the NFL like fantasy football, the Titans Media League is for no money. But
is there a trophy?
No, but there should be.
There should be a trophy.
We
if you don't play for money, you should play for a trophy.
I agree, because you know what I started here recently? The league.
Oh, the league is a phenomenal series.
I didn't realize how much star power that they had on that TV show at the time. That was an excellent TV show. There was a lot of NFL stars that wanted to be a part of it. You had Snoop Dogg, Seth Rogen running around in the league for
Seth
episodes.
Rogen, it wasn't just like a one-off guest appearance. Seth Rogen was a recurring character in the league.
They did a whole separate episode of the league where it's just Seth Rogen and whoever the actor that plays Rafi's character is, which is excellent.
He plays somebody on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I can't think of his name.
Either way, I agree. The Titans Media League should have a trophy. Now, we'll leave it up to whoever wins this weekend. It's between me and Wyatt, Team Auto Draft versus Jimmy Wyatt's Flying Squirrels. I don't know why they're the Flying Squirrels, but they are.
Would be another big win for Jim Wyatt this year, in a year of many.
Wyatt on Twitter. If you come for him, you better be ready, because Jimmy will end you on social media. He's very quick with it.
And the one, I'm not taking roll?
Correct. That's why it came to mind. It may be my Friday fire. Jim Wyatt nuking people on Twitter that would dare, chirp him just because they're unhappy with their football season. It delights me. Jimmy is an assassin. He just doesn't want to tell anybody. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. Coach Mack, speaking of Titans-related stuff, Coach Mack will be on with us at 11:20. People are saying that the Rafi character is Nick Kroll. No, Nick Kroll is Ruxin. I don't know the Rafi character off the top of my head, but the league, an excellent show. Either way, compelling finishes. I don't know how we got there. Compelling finishes in the NFL in Week 17. There are games with implications across not quite across the board, but things to keep an eye on at this point in time. Paul is up next. What's up, Paul?
Hello?
Hey.
Yeah, I was just wondering why they never talk about Vandy, the big bowl game coming up today, and it's all Tennessee Titans, Tennessee Vols, nothing about Vandy at all ever.
Well, I got 3 hours. I'm 39 minutes into the show. You don't know what I got playing today. Also, turn me down to the background. I don't like hearing myself on delay.
I'm sorry, I've got a lot of static on the line.
Okay. Thanks for the call, Paul. We'll get to Vandy's bowl game later.
That was a good Jim Wyatt clap back there. 39 minutes in, that was pretty good.
I mean, I got a whole day. What do you relax? Yeah, Vandy's in their bowl game today. Birmingham Bowl. I don't know if Lucas is going. He might. Do you have an SEC observation or stat of the day? Is it regarding Vandy? It better be, or Paul's going to come after you.
Yeah, let's talk about Vandy and the Birmingham Bowl coming up next.
I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. All he had to do was wait a commercial break, and we were going to talk about the bowl game. All he had to do.
Vandy, not good enough to make the SEC stat of the day open, but good enough to make the Birmingham Bowl against Georgia Tech, and I actually think this is going to be a fun matchup.
What is wrong with you? Why are you taking shots at Vandy?
I don't know. I felt like a joke there.
No, it's just, see, there's already a preconceived notion about this station because there are so many employees that went to the University of Tennessee, and you just got to openly agitate the Vanderbilt ones.
Just a little poke.
Rude.
But the Birmingham Bowl is going to be fun. Diego Pavia versus Haynes King, two of the most fun quarterbacks I've watched this season. Haynes King in that offense is really fun to watch, and they've put up a fight against some really solid teams. Georgia took them to 8 overtimes, and then Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt, what they've done this season, beating Alabama, upsetting teams left and right, making a bowl game for the first time in multiple years. I think this is going to be a really fun matchup in Birmingham.
So, I don't know who would be, I don't know who wins this game. It's going to be interesting. It would be great for Clark Lee and Vanderbilt to finish with a winning season.
I think Georgia Tech's going to win this game. I think they have more, although they've lost guys to the portal, they lost their best receiver to the portal. So,
see, that's the equalizer in these bowl games. There's so, and specific to Vandy and Georgia Tech, there's not a ton of attrition, but there is some.
There's been more attrition on Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Vandy's coming in with a pretty close roster to what they had in late November against Tennessee.
So, right now, Georgia Tech, and this is courtesy of BetMGM, they're -2.5, over under 51.5 for this particular game. You can get Vanderbilt +115 on the money line if you're feeling bold with Diego Pavia. There's a lot of good vibes around Vandy just generally this season. Of course, everything peaked with Alabama. It petered out since then. The Diego Pavia thing, the story of him being available for next year and how he has won his lawsuit against the NCAA. He's going to continue through the legal process as he's gotten that temporary injunction. But there's good vibes around Vanderbilt. He always brings it. I know that the health has been less than ideal for him, and these are two teams that are obviously going to lean on their running game. How effective Vanderbilt will be remains to be seen because that, like I said, did peter out. But they're two teams that like to run. They're going to grind the clock. Quarterback matchup should be fun. It's going to happen during Blaine and Zach, right? That's on. It's 2:30. Yeah, 2:30. So towards the end of Blaine and Zach and the 3HL, we'll keep you updated on that. Dawn's on assignment this week, yeah? I think I saw her take a picture from Yankee Stadium.
Could be the Pinstripe Bowl.
It's entirely possible. Bowl games everywhere. So much fun at this
40
point
bowls
in
14 days.
It is exhausting. But at this point, Alabama on October the 5th, the 40-35 win, then stringing together a couple against a weak Kentucky team and then Ball State before they had obviously a tough finish. They lost to Texas, they lost to South Carolina, they lost to LSU, and then they lost to Tennessee after getting they made you sweat. They made you sweat for a moment.
14-0 to start that game.
14-0 with some special teams miscues on the part of the Vols. 6-6, 3-5 in conference play this year. If you can go 7-6, I think that'd be a huge accomplishment for Clark Lee and kind of send you into the offseason on an even bigger high than the Diego Pavia injunction or temporary injunction might have given you.
Something huge to build on there because, you're going to have Diego Pavia coming back next year to be able to build on the success. You've had some transfer portals addition. They got a DB from Tennessee. They're adding in the portal. I think Vandy could have an even better team next year than they have this year.
Look at you with your hot takes.
Well, I took a shot at them to start, so.
What else do you have back there?
You want to talk?
Because that's not a stat of the day.
You want to talk a little CFP?
I would like to.
Let's talk a little CFP, and let's talk backup quarterbacks. We found out this week Carson Beck out for the college football playoffs. He's having surgery on his shoulder or his elbow. It's his elbow. His elbow.
You have gotten so much. We are 49 minutes into the show. You had the Bears losing 9 in a row instead of 10 in a row.
I didn't say that into a microphone.
Well, I'm exposing you now because you told me convinced this morning that the Bears had only lost 9 in a row as opposed to 10 in a row. You got that wrong because you can't count. What else are you going to get wrong today?
I just said the wrong part of the arm. It's right down the road. It's the neighbor. So let's talk about backup quarterbacks in the CFP and the history of the CFP.
So stupid.
In the first college football playoff, obviously we had Cardale Jones for Ohio State leading them to a national championship. Then the next example really is when Jalen Hurts was benched in the second half against Georgia and came back and led Alabama to a win over Georgia in overtime. Tua did. So there's not a huge sample size here, but what do you think about the Georgia backup quarterback?
They trust him. And it feels like you try not to take too much of what a fan base says seriously, because there's some unhinged emotion there that you want to be cognizant of. And Georgia fans feels like, even though they're successful and got the first round bye and handled business against Texas twice, especially in the SEC championship, despite losing Carson Beck, I feel like they're more chesty.
This is going to be a tough test for Gunnar Stockton, the Georgia backup. Notre Dame has a really solid defense. They're really
solid,
good.
They're
really
excellent.
Good. Excellent. This is his first career start at the collegiate level, and it's a college football playoff quarterfinal game against an excellent defense. I just don't know how you can be this confident heading into it other than we're better in every other area around you.
I mean, he got a taste of this, right? Like, I think the thing that would give you confidence is any quarterbacking situation, or any quarterback will tell you, I can't speak on behalf of the quarterback position, but having covered enough of them, backups and starters, just give them a little time to prepare, and you can put enough together on a talented roster to get through a situation like this. I mean, he was pretty good off the bench.
Yeah, and I'm
in the
sure
SEC championship game, he helped them rally from the 6-3 halftime deficit that they were facing against Texas. He played the entire second half, basically, all but the final play of overtime after Beck was sidelined. I know he threw a pick, but he was fine.
Yeah, and I'm sure Georgia, as a team, knew Carson Beck was not coming back probably the Monday after the game.
It sounds like they've known for a while, and there's been some reporting around how early on they might have known. So, yeah, I think they're going to be prepared. And I know we know that there's no college football playoff games this weekend. You'll have to wait until next week, and we'll get into those at greater depth with you. But, yeah, it's a fascinating proposition because it's not just Carson Beck and Gunnar Stockton that we may be talking about. I have no idea what's going to happen with Quinn Ewers throughout the course of this, how far Texas makes it, whether they'll feel it necessary to get the Arch Manning spark if Ewers doesn't necessarily perform up to expectation, because that's kind of lingering in the background of Texas too.
Oh, yeah. I think you could have both of the past history of backup quarterbacks in the college football playoff happen in this college football playoff. You have the injury with Gunnar Stockton as he's leading Georgia through the playoff, and you could definitely see at halftime they make the switch from Quinn Ewers to Arch Manning.
Taylor says, don't on YouTube. F&M Bank Chat is where you can interact, or you can give us a call. Taylor says, don't take anything seriously from Georgia Barkers. Yeah, no, Georgia fans just in general. It's, for that much of the population to
bark at people.
Yeah, it's tough.
Did Matt Murphy bark at you after Georgia beat Tennessee?
Not at me. He knows I don't care. But
he barked at me.
He did bark at you.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bark in the hallway.
Well, you got it. You got alphaed. You got alphaed by Matt Murphy. I assume we're going to have Murphy in next week. So he's going to come in here. He's feeling himself, Matt Murphy. He's got his team in the college football playoff. He's got a quarterback situation that I honestly think he feels better about than Carson Beck, given how inconsistent, except against Tennessee, Carson Beck was this season. He's feeling himself down the hall. We're probably going to have him come in here, because last time it was tail between his legs. It was faux humility on the behalf of the Georgia fan base heading into that Tennessee game before they pretty well handled you.
He's also got a new time slot.
I know. That's what I'm saying. All things turning up Matt Murphy here lately. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. The question for you is, who should lead the NFL's MVP voting? We didn't talk really about Lamar Jackson's performance yesterday. We'll get into that and the conversation between him, Josh Allen, and potentially some of these running backs with Derrick Henry on the precipice of another 2,000-yard season. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions keep you up at night, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and, most importantly, guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth. Trajan Wealth is not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. And they're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement.
It is 10:58. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. Thursday night football last night was an ugly one as the Seahawks took down the Bears 6-3. Chicago has lost 10 straight games since starting the season, 4-2, and dropped to 4-12 after that one as the Seahawks rise to 9-7. Titans back on the practice field yesterday as they get ready to hit the road one last time in the 2024 season when they head to Jacksonville this Sunday. Non-participants were Tyler Boyd, Otis Reese, Tony Pollard, Amani Hooker, Nick Folk, and Dylan Radens. Colton Dowell and Bryce Oliver both limited. In transfer portal news, the Vols lost 4 players yesterday to the portal as quarterback Gaston Moore, DB Christian Harrison, tight end Holden Stays, and defensive lineman Jason Jenkins all entered their names in. That brings the total number of outgoing transfers to 16. And Tennessee running back Dylan Samson has announced he will forego his senior season and declare for the 2025 NFL Draft. In his junior year, Samson ran for 1,491 yards and 22 touchdowns and was named the SEC Player of the Year by the Associated Press. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour on this Friday. Thanks for jumping in. We have avoided a lot of the MVP debate stuff. Yeah, we do the Heisman Trophy update throughout the course of the season. That was more interesting typically than I think the MVP discussion is in the NFL for a couple of different reasons. One, because a non-quarterback won it this year, and there was a pretty good percentage chance the entire way through that a non-quarterback would win the Heisman Trophy, so it kept you engaged, especially with the way that this college football season played out. The other part of this is there anything that's more fluid than the way that people try to have MVP conversations all season long in the NFL? It's one of the biggest time wasters, which, sports talk radio, there's a lot of time. We're basically an infomercial to get you from game to game. So if you need to waste some time, there's some compelling conversation to be had in the MVP conversation. But now that I think we're in the home stretch, I think you can really dig in. 2 games left for most of these teams. Last week, it felt basically like a foregone conclusion that Josh Allen, the Bills quarterback, was going to be the MVP. Christmas Day for Lamar Jackson really feels like it got him back into the conversation. Josh Allen has never been an MVP the way that Lamar Jackson is a defending 2-time NFL MVP and two of the most entertaining, electrifying players that you have in the NFL right now. Not going at it head-to-head, but you're kind of keeping tabs on what both of them are doing week in and week out. Lamar, obviously, this was an ass-kicking against the Houston Texans, 31-2. He was electric. He continues to narrow the gap between him and Josh Allen. Josh Allen's still the favorite to win at -250 right now. Lamar is +160. Then you get into the running back conversation with Saquon at +1,400. Is Derrick Henry going to get a single MVP vote if he breaks 2K again? Or is it just going to be about Lamar? Is there any room for the discussion of Derrick Henry around MVP? He barely got a sniff. He got one MVP vote the year that he broke 2K in the COVID season.
I don't think so. I think there's 2 clear quarterback answers to the question, who is the MVP right now, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. I think he'll come in third. He may get another 1 vote, but I don't think, even if he gets 2,000 yards, again, for the second time, I believe the first player to ever get 2,000 twice, I still don't think he would be a real contender for MVP.
He's 217 yards away from doing something nobody has ever done before.
And he was, I believe, 235 the last time he was going into the final game that's how much he needed in 2020.
Now, he already had his big day against the Texans, right?
They can't play the Texans again.
It's not the AFC South. He doesn't get to see the Texans again in Week 18, the way that the Titans' schedule would oftentimes lead it to, and certainly in that game in Houston, he broke 2K with one of the most electrifying runs that you've seen Derrick Henry had. He's been excellent in Baltimore this year, and he's excellent in part because it's a much better football team than he's been on in the past couple of years, much better roster than he's been on in the past couple of years, and certainly with the best quarterback that Derrick Henry has ever had the opportunity to play with. We knew that was going to be a really great match between him and Lamar, and especially as a red zone threat, the kind of red zone threat that they lend to one another. But to your point, he's going to have a much tougher time even getting that recognition. What about Burrow?
Losing team. How are you the most valuable to a sub-500 team?
It's the best argument against, but he's having a statistically better year than both of them.
Yeah, he's been awesome. He's not the reason they're bad, but they're not winning games.
I'm always curious to know how the MVP voting goes down because there's only 50 of them, and it's people at the top of the sport who get to decide on these things, the very top of the sport. Josh Allen has been so difficult to stop individually. Do you think Derrick Henry hurts Lamar Jackson's case?
I think he could.
I think it should. It shouldn't. It could. You're right, but it shouldn't. That's nonsense.
When you look at Derrick Henry's game logs, which I am right now, he has had 4 games under 70 yards, which makes what he's could potentially do in Week 18 even more insane.
3 total touchdowns, 9 completions for 166 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 4 rushes for 87 yards, and a touchdown was Lamar. He's one of the best players in football. I don't know who would be better if you can't do the sample size on a neutral team, right? Not all things are created equal. Josh Allen has less help than Lamar Jackson does, even if he's got a really good offensive line this year, which matters for the quarterback conversation. I'd take Josh Allen's offensive line over the Ravens. But with everything else that Lamar has as far as wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs, plural, because it's not just Derrick Henry. Justice Hill has been really, really good for them all year long. I could understand how it might ding Lamar slightly optically, but it shouldn't because he's just been so good. The other part of this is how much of, not to say that there's Lamar Jackson fatigue, but Lamar Jackson has won the MVP twice. Josh Allen has never won the MVP.
Which is why I think Josh Allen's going to be the MVP.
That sucks, though.
It does. I think the MVP system in the NFL is extremely flawed and probably one of the most flawed awards in sports.
The better team is Baltimore, especially now that they've made the defensive changes that they have and they're playing much better football. Not that they were solely responsible for blanking the Houston Texans that way. The Houston Texans, not blanking. Well, I guess blanking them as an offense. Lamar talked about how disappointed he was that he prevented his defense from pitching a shutout. Because that would be, there's only been one in the NFL this year. If Baltimore had one right after the first one of the season, that would be really, really impressive. For a defense that's been considered their Achilles heel all year long. And if you're telling me that Burrow can't be the MVP because his team isn't good enough, is Lamar Jackson going to get hurt or helped by the fact that he's playing on a much better team?
I think it's just two different cases because the Bengals just aren't winning games.
Yeah.
But and they would be terrible if they didn't have Joe Burrow. I think they would be in contention for a top 5 pick, all that. But I think it's going to help Josh Allen more in his case, that Lamar has the much better team with Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews and a good defense, Kyle Hamilton. And so I think it's just a different. Yeah, it's going to hurt.
You're really petering out there, bud.
It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt Lamar Jackson. It's going to help Josh Allen. I think I said that wrong again. But
yeah, you sure did. Buffalo's 12-3. I'm going to take this back from you.
Yeah, please do. I couldn't think of the word. What's the word?
Oh, my God. You tried to tell me you could host the radio show without me if I was late today.
I could do it. Get out.
I just got an example of that, and it was like watching somebody that I felt the need to toss a verbal life jacket to, like you were drowning.
I just could not think of the word I needed.
It's okay. Radio's hard. Buffalo is currently 12-3. Ravens are 11-5. So if the Bills finish with a better record, it's going to bode well for Josh Allen there. Ravens got the Browns next at home, and the Browns are particularly wretched, so they should be, they are favored to win that game. Bills will play the Jets at home and the Patriots in New England. One would think that those would be easy wins. I will say, though, of the Jets, and I don't like to give the Jets credit for anything because the Jets are a laughingstock of a franchise, especially what's just been in the news about their ownership recently. But Aaron Rodgers is playing better football.
MVP?
No, shut up.
Also, the word I was thinking of is a double standard. Thought of it the second my mic turned off.
Excellent work by you. That's no good to anybody.
It's a double standard between Joe Burrow and Josh Allen.
Okay, well done.
There we go.
If Aaron Rodgers gets cut by the Jets, I don't know that I would rule him out here. Now, I don't think that's the kind of quarterback that Brian Callahan wants anything to do with, especially with your job on the line. If they end up, more likely than not, they'll end up getting retained into 2025. It would be an upset if Amy Adams-Strunk decided that she was going to clear house on a first-year coach and a second-year general manager. Though, the thing that we could talk about is a question that A to Z had posed, A to Z Sports had posed earlier this week, which is that if they end up with the number one overall pick, would that present you with a pretty good opportunity to reset the board entirely if you were having some doubts? Now, it would be tough for them to end up with that number one overall pick, but there is a path there.
Oh, yeah.
There is a path. So, that is the thing, though, because we didn't talk about Aaron Rodgers gaslighting the state of Tennessee on McAfee.
He loves Nashville.
He said, shout out to the fine people in the state of Tennessee. No state income taxes, all these different things, knowing exactly what he's doing.
Knowing the no state income tax thing is a special kind of gaslighting Titans fans.
Well, that's because that's the thing that they're clinging to most in the offseason, isn't it? Well, we can pay you more than anybody else. We got cap space, Sam Darnold.
And you won't have to pay income tax on it, bud.
Come on down and get it. He's got a home here. Am I going to have to do that again this offseason? I would rather honestly have the Aaron Rodgers conversation at this point. This is some of the options that are out there.
In 2022, it was when that first came out, right? I don't think that was.
Yeah, I think it was. Would it have been after the 2022 Combine? Because there was some stuff floating around Derrick Henry at the Combine. There was some stuff floating around Aaron Rodgers at the Combine. Obviously, those rumors around Derrick specifically were denied, and the Jets stuff with Aaron Rodgers ended up being very, very true, except for the idea of the Titans flirtation or level of flirtation in him. But the idea that he's out here on McAfee talking about, just stirring the pot a little bit, as he's known to do, with Jets ownership sounding like they're kind of done with him, I don't know that I wouldn't take a run at him.
Would he take the number 12 from Mason Kinsey?
Titans legend. Yeah, he's probably sick of the 8. There's bad juju in the 8, and, obviously 8 here has not been well regarded either for at least the past couple players who have had that jersey on. So we'll see. Plenty of time to talk about it. Who would I pick? I would take Lamar. I think Lamar Jackson should be the most valuable player pending this Browns result. This dude is unbelievable. The season that he has had, the extra gear that Todd Monken, I don't know that Lamar didn't ever have that as a passer, but Todd Monken has obviously put him in a better position in that offense to succeed as a passer. Derrick Henry being there, we've talked about this before. He doesn't have to just be Baltimore's best quarterback and best running back, Lamar. Now he has Derrick, who's one of the best running backs in the league and made infinitely better because he's got Lamar Jackson and the threat of the downfield pass to open things up for him when the way that it was when the Titans were at their best in 19 and in 20 when they were really cooking with Derrick Henry and the rest of the things that they had on the roster. I think it should be Lamar. He's been better than the player that he was as last year's most valuable player. That's a tough thing for me to ignore.
He's thrown 4 interceptions, only 1 interception on the road.
Lamar Jackson, I think, is the MVP again. And
I think he's the most deserving. I don't think he'll win it.
Well, then let me make it the most deserving. Because if Josh Allen just gets it, and listen, Josh,
it happens in the NBA all the time.
This is the best Josh Allen we've ever seen. And that's a crazy thing to say. But it's kind of like it's to talk about all three of them. This is the thing that makes this offseason so important to nail for not just the Titans, for so many AFC teams. They're getting better. The four of them at the top of the conference, and I know Burrow's in hell right now with his defense, but truly, would you not call in 2024 Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow ascending players?
Yeah, they're getting better.
Indisputably. You have to get so many things right this offseason to just have a shot at one of the four of them. And that's the entire conference. That's the Jets, the Titans, teams like the Colts that seem like they're stuck in this purgatory even though they're closer. They're sniffing the in the hunt graphic. We'll see what Anthony Richardson's availability is coming into this weekend. That sounds like it's subject to some debate. But there's so many teams clawing at these four dudes, and they're getting better.
Yeah, the fact that they haven't reached their peak yet is scary.
Coming up next, Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio. Maybe we'll talk to Mac about this kind of stuff. As well as the Jags game, Titans on the road in Jacksonville this weekend. The head coach of Titans Radio, Coach Dave McGinness, will join us coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio joins us at this time on Fridays. He makes his time available to all 4 shows, courtesy of the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, online at tworiversford.com for more information. Happy Friday, Mac.
Same to you, Buck. Hope you had a good Christmas. I just talked to Jackson. He said he did, so I think we all 3 did.
Yes, absolutely. And I always appreciate the Christmas wishes from Coach Mack, and I hope you had a great holiday as well, buddy. Thanks for taking some time.
Absolutely. It was good.
Big opportunity to try and continue to prove themselves at this point in the season against a divisional opponent, Mac, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll get to that in just a second, but I know that you watch all these primetime games very closely, especially how much you know about the Chicago Bears as an organization and kind of where they're at right now. Bears lose 6-3 against the Seattle Seahawks yesterday. Caleb Williams is really going through it in Chicago right now. I wonder what you make of that entire situation this year.
Well, it's not. I mean, look, they're struggling. They're struggling with, clearly, the young quarterback. I mean, we saw that the first game that we played up there. I mean, he was struggling then, and he really never has gained traction, the entire year. And then when you let your head coach go, during the season, well, then that always throws a real wrench in anything else you're trying to do. So they're just trying to make it through the season, and then it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with that organization head coach wise. I would think they would get somebody in there as a head coach to try to help that young quarterback. But I was there for 10 years, and that's a very, very savvy football place as far as the fans and the expectations. It's a rough place to be when you're not winning games, and especially when you take a quarterback. You take a quarterback number 1, very high number 1, and he really hasn't been able to do much.
Yeah, and, that just speaks to kind of the nature of team building and how hard it is to get things right. One position can't just cover up everything. If you're trying to continue to build a team, you have to have the proper infrastructure in place. And to your point, Mac, about kind of the way that the Bears have gone through it and how they're just trying to get to the end of the season and make sure that everybody's as healthy as humanly possible so that they can try and build on something in 2025. I try not to make too much of body language, but I don't know that I've seen a quarterback as just openly miserable as Caleb Williams seems to be, Mac. And I don't know how much that matters or doesn't to a coaching staff when you see stuff like that on TV, or if that's just a media thing.
Well, he's going to be their quarterback. I mean, it really, but to your point about the body language, that's part of the maturity that you have to grow into, especially if you're a quarterback. I mean, just like it or not, if you're a quarterback in this league, it's a high visibility proposition, and the body language does make a difference, especially when things aren't going well. And as you say, you can't. It's not just one position that dooms a franchise, but when you've got that guy, and you've taken him number 1, and then I think the maturity level is what you're looking for, is to be able to say, I know there's going to be some really hard-ass times in this league if we don't win, but I can't openly show that it's just crushing me because it's not going well.
Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Noon, the kickoff between the Titans and Jags in Jacksonville. Titans lost the first one. The first time around here at Nissan Stadium would be fun opportunity for them to go down to Jacksonville and do the exact same. Mac, with everything that you've seen so far in the league, I know your preparation each week is focused on the Titans for obvious reasons, but has there been a team or a marriage of coach and player or something like that that you've particularly enjoyed, that maybe hasn't surprised you because you know a lot more of these parties involved, but that you've enjoyed watching from afar this season?
Well, I mean, as far as coach and a player, I mean, most of the time we're talking about, again, we're back to the conversation, of a coach and a quarterback. I think what Matt LaFleur has done at Green Bay has been really good. I mean, he has been able to rise above a whole lot of drama there early on. And, he had Jordan Love that the organization believed in, and he set for 4 years. So he's rewarding that relationship, I think, quite a bit now. And they've been able to build around him. So, I mean, that's kind of an anomaly in this league right now, where you've got a young guy that you really like, from Utah State, that they said, we like this guy, we're going to take him, even though we've got a Hall of Famer sitting here in front of him, and that has paid off, having him sit for 4 years. But now, once he's gotten his chance, I mean, he's kind of rewarded the coach's patience with him.
That division is fascinating every year, but particularly with Detroit being as good as they are, Minnesota having won 8 in a row, and obviously Green Bay having 11 wins and being in third place is kind of a crazy proposition. The job that Kevin O'Connell has done in Minnesota, Mac, with Sam Darnold in particular, and going back to those kind of relationships and how, it doesn't necessarily, just because a player doesn't succeed in one place doesn't mean that their career is over. There's examples of that all over the league. The quarterbacks are the ones that get highlighted the most, I guess. But Sam Darnold, I don't know if he hasn't earned the opportunity to come back to Minnesota next year.
Well, I mean, they're going to have to think about it pretty deeply, because again, there's another guy, Sam Darnold, that was a high draft pick that didn't work out. It takes quarterbacks some time, and it takes sometimes them going through, being taken away from them, and they still can learn, because most quarterbacks. Now, I say not all, but most that are drafted. And again, in the first round, you've got to think they have some qualities that somebody, more than somebody, some bodies within the organization like. And I mean, it's a growing process that they have to learn how to play that position in this league. But Sam Darnold is a great example of it. And of course, Kevin O'Connell, he's done a nice job of rewarding the quarterback. They put a pretty decent football team around him, but Sam Darnold has come in and has done his part as far as to saying, hey, this is my chance after being in this league for a while to show you that I still can win football games. And you're right, it's been a nice pairing this year.
It's such a fascinating position to talk about, and to see how the NFL kind of ebbs and flows with its evaluation of quarterbacks, and especially when you're talking about the 4 guys we were mentioning this earlier, Mac. Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson all seem to still be ascending players at their position, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Well, those are very talented dudes. I mean, you're talking about first round picks. I mean, Joe Burrow's having as good a year statistically as he's ever had. The team's just not winning. But he's he went through the ACL injury, but I mean, he's always lived up to the national championship quarterback that came out of LSU. All those traits he's always demonstrated in the National Football League. Josh Allen, had to overcome the whole wild horse rider thing, and the throwing fastballs every pitch and all of those things, but he's ascended. And of course, Lamar Jackson's been through several iterations of offensive coordinators, but no offensive coordinator has ever taken away his ability nor have used his talent to run the football. And then this year, with the addition of Derrick Henry, I mean, that was the ideal partner to put with him, because now that puts kind of a double hex on defenses that are trying to defend, a quarterback and a running back that can hurt you in 2 different ways. So, look, but those guys are standing up to, their evaluation. You know this, Buck. I know you agree with this. There's 2 drafts. There's a quarterback draft, and then there's everybody else's draft. But those guys have lived up to what they were looked at when they came out. They've lived up to their evaluations. And once you get a chance in the league, they got better.
Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. The Titans are back in Jacksonville. You can hear Mac and Mike and the rest of the crew on the call on the Titans Radio Network, and especially here on 104.5 The Zone on Sunday. Just quickly, before we move on to that game, Mac, Derrick Henry, he's 217 away from 2,000 yards again. From understanding how much of NFL history you've seen, what kind of air would that put him in if he was the first player in the league's history to break 2K twice?
Well, it's an accomplishment. Now, look, the people are going to parse it and look at it and say, well, now you've got 17 games. You know, when Jim Brown's record was broken, when Jim Brown played, they played 14 games. You know, and so, I mean, those types of things, you know, because number of games and what 1,000 yards meant with 14 games or 12 games is a lot different than what it meant with 16 games. It's still an accomplishment. But Derrick Henry, I mean, he needed 2,000 when he was here going into a game where he needed more yardage than that, and he got it. Yeah. I would never put anything past him right now, especially with that group that he's got around him. You know, that's one of the better offensive lines in the group. And, again, as I say, I mean, I'm just looking at it from a defensive coordinator's aspect of it. You're defending that offense, and you've got to get +1 down in the box, be able to play a quarterback that's a designated runner too, and then you've got a guy like Derrick Henry that you need more than +1 to stop at times. When he can get to his third step, I mean, he's got a real chance to do it.
Titans going with Mason Rudolph again after the Colts game. They get down 38-7. They do bring themselves back within one score in the second half. But obviously you want to avoid that first pitfall that they had trouble with as a defense in particular. Sticking with Rudolph, though, Mac, does he give them what they're setting out to accomplish with him, which is keeping the offense in rhythm, on schedule, and just basically being more decisive with where he makes his reads?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a veteran quarterback, so he's got that experience, you know, over Will Levis to do that. But yes, and the biggest thing is, and you know, I know he turned the ball over. There were 3 interceptions in that last ball game, but really, you know, the one that went off of Pollard's hands, that's not on the quarterback. And then the last one was just the free for all throw. The worst one was an interception before the half. I mean, that was a bad throw. That was a bad decision, bad throw. That's what you've got to stay away from. And that's, you know, the Titans have turned the ball over 32 times this year, and that's just it's really hard to stay in games, to get ahead of games, to catch up in games if you've turned the ball over that many times. So that's job number one. Besides moving the chains and scoring touchdowns, they've done better at scoring touchdowns in the low red zone because, you know, they started to gang up with personnel and just run the ball in down there. That's helped them a lot. But yes, I mean, just move the chain and just play quarterback and just don't give the ball to the other team when you have it in your hands. That's a huge, huge thing you have to do.
The other part of this is the run defense, and I know you've talked about this several times. The explosives are in there, right, Mac? And that's not necessarily like the offense doing everything right. More often than not, that's a missed assignment on the defense. And there was a couple of opportunities in there that Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor were able to exploit. How do you approach that as a defensive coach when you have a unit that gives up, you know, some more larger than average figure in one phase of your play there? How do you kind of approach that? Is it nuanced, or is it just like, hey guys, this is unacceptable, it can't be 335 or anywhere close again?
Well, it's just assignment football. Look, those gaps haven't changed since football started. And now, you know, when you're playing an offense like Washington has, you play an offense like Baltimore has, and now you're playing like an offense like Indianapolis is going to have in the future, where the quarterback is a designated runner. You've got, I mean, it's assignment, it's option football. I mean, they call it RPO now, but the pitch option now is throwing the football. So you can't get, and especially when they put the gap scheme with it, and if you're late in the second level of replacing gaps, when a gap scheme means you're pulling a lineman, you're pulling adjacent linemen, you're pulling linemen from the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. I mean, you've got to get your edge set. You've got to get your edge set so everything is squeezed inside. But if you don't get the proper overlap inside, you know, when you're playing inside linebacker against a gap scheme, you're going to have to jump gaps. It's not one back, one gap anymore. You've got to jump gaps and be able to fill, to flow across and then get downhill. They were late filling, and that was the problem. And then when you're playing +1, which means you're borrowing from the back end to stop that gap scheme, you're going to be in single high. If you're in single high, you've got two corners that are clearly on the outside. They're on the outside, and they're not primary run players anymore. All right? So everybody has to be in the proper place, and those clear view runs, I mean, the edge wasn't set well enough. The backers didn't get over well enough. One tackle was missed, and then it's to the house. But I mean, it's assignment football. They were running nothing at all that they hadn't run before. They just ran it more often because they were successful with it. It was nothing that they didn't practice all week, that you don't start practicing really basically in this league from day one, as far as being able to play the gap scheme, because the gap scheme is very prevalent now. And it was like the Washington game. They were late and they played it very poorly. So it's nothing more than assignment football is what it is.
Yeah, and we understand the attrition specifically at off-ball linebacker right now with Kenneth Murray going on injured reserve, and you're playing a good deal of snaps. There's been a lot of rookie snaps for this team all season long, whether it be Latham or Sweat, Brownlee or otherwise, but now with James Williams and Cedric Gray in the mix. No, understanding that you know that position as well as anybody, Mac, what are you seeing from the two young guys right now beyond, some miscues in that gap scheme or against that gap scheme?
Yeah, well, they were, they got a real embarrassing baptism to it. I mean, you got to learn from it, because that's the one thing. Always playing linebacker in this league. I mean, every linebacker coach in their room has a sign that says eyes before feet. You got to know what you're looking at before you start moving. And here's the other thing too: a slow, correct decision playing that position on defense in the National Football League. And listen to what I say: a slow, correct decision is wrong because you're behind the play. And so they learned it at a very, very hard way to learn it.
Well, Mac, I hope you have a safe trip down to Jacksonville with the rest of the crew, and I appreciate you as always, and I'll see you in the booth on Sunday, buddy.
See you in the booth, Buck. You better bring a raincoat because it's going to rain in Jacksonville this weekend.
Oh, it's just, it always feels like there's a slight drizzle anytime you're in that city for some reason, Mac. So that should be the expectation anytime they're down there.
Well, just take it from Coach Mac. Please wear a raincoat.
I always do, even if I don't get to the advice as soon as I should get to it, Mac. I always listen to Coach Mac's advice. That's the main man. Coach
I'll
Dave.
See you down there.
See you, buddy. Have a safe trip. That's Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio, Titans and the Jags, right here on 104.5 The Zone. Noon, the kickoff pregame with the crew. Lee Company countdown to kickoff. Kayla Anderson, Blaine Bishop, I think, is off this week. So it'll be Kayla and Brad Hopkins here. And I'll be in Jacksonville with some news and notes, some updates for everybody who is locked into that game. They're all important. Anytime you can get a win, it's important. I don't know where Titans fans' rooting allegiance is right now. Like, majority. And I don't know that would be reflected on Twitter or that would be reflected on the callers or whatever the case may be, the live stream chat. But I genuinely don't know when you've got a 3-12 team and you understand that the football team, the coaches, the front office, the ownership group, well, not everybody. There are plenty of people in there who would be more interested in a higher draft pick than they would a meaningless win, for lack of a better term, against the Jags or the Texans. But it's not meaningless to everybody. It may not mean anything to you as a fan because your draft order is the most important thing, and that's understandable. Of course, that's where your priorities are. But your coaching staff has made this quarterback change and continues to stick with this quarterback change because they think it gives them the best chance to win. And they desperately need to show the people that control their job status that they are capable of winning. The amount of times that Brian Callahan, and it kind of sucks for a head coach, just the amount of times that you have to go up there and answer for everything. But that's the job, right? That's what the money's for. But when you've got a microscope on things like the Titans defense, and the Titans defense can't for the life of them get right against the same gap scheme run stuff that Washington showed them a couple of weeks earlier, about a month earlier, or incapable of stopping it, gave up 267 yards on the ground. Then you go to Indy, who runs a lot of similar stuff, and it's 355. It's the most rushing yards allowed since 1961 in the franchise's history. It's the second most allowed ever. That kind of stuff. And they've had, the personnel excuse, or the youth, the inexperience. I give them a lot of credit for trying to do this with a ton of rookies, because of course they didn't intend to play James Williams or Cedric Gray or Jarvis Brownlee as many snaps as they have had to this season. You hope that improves either the viability of some of those players as top-end starters, or it can at least give them the kind of experience that gives you quality depth moving forward should you have to go back to those players. However long Kenneth Murray might miss with this wrist injury, I don't know that I don't know the extent. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but fair to expect it wouldn't cost him like a chunk of next season if it's something that's going to require surgery there. We'll see what happens with Kenneth Murray, and he's obviously under contract. But Cedric Gray, James Williams, Jarvis Brownlee, they have been kind of playing above their heads the entire time. I think Brownlee's handled it the best out of them, for sure, by far and away. I think that he may make you make some difficult decisions, if not this offseason, but then in future offseasons with Cheeto Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed on multiple or multi-year deals at this point in time. You're trying to figure out who you can build with. This roster, whatever your expectations were, whether it was how badly it's gone. Some of you may have thought that this was a team capable of only winning 3 games. I refuse to believe that that's a large percentage of you, given how excited people were in the offseason and what you thought this coaching staff was going to be able to do and ultimately fell short with. And, of course, the thing that you can't predict is the quarterback going nuclear as often as he did. The thing that has sandbagged you the most often, is most responsible for those, I think it's league leading right now, 32 turnovers at this point in time. It has to be. That's a ton. It's an insane. Brian Callahan called it an insanity to have turned the ball over at the rate that they have this year and expect to have any kind of success. So, Jacksonville, try to play a clean game. See who you've got for the future, as will be the case as we move forward, even if losing for draft position seems the most appealing right now. Do I have things to give away?
You do. 2 tickets to the Music City Bowl if you give us your Friday Fire.
615-737-1045. Listen, I know I've just talked to you about 3 and 12 football, so you may not be in the positive mindset right now, but I know something good happened to you out there. It's the holidays, damn it. I know something good happened to one of you out there for the opportunity to brighten our day a little bit and give us your Friday Fire. 615-737-1045. The winner gets 2 tickets to the Music City Bowl. That's right. The Vols might be out. The Titans down tremendous. But damn it, there's something positive out there. 615-737-1045 is the number. Tell us your Friday fire. The thing that made you happy. The thing that happened to you personally, professionally, sports-wise, or otherwise that made you feel good. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to submit for the opportunity to win what, Jackson?
2 tickets to the Music City Bowl, Iowa and Mizzou.
Okay, Iowa and Missouri in the Music City Bowl. 615-737-1045 is the number. Actually, the thing that I've just sent you is the thing that I'm most scared about because it's a tweet from Darren Bates, and I know that's not clean. So we don't have the opportunity to edit it. But what I will tell you is my Friday fire.
Did you just try to throw a live grenade into the radio show?
I didn't know it was Bates's video. It was on a local news person's feed from the Charlotte area because it is Xavier Leggett. All right? Xavier Leggett is delightful. He's a rookie wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. He has famously talked about what his favorite dish is around the holidays, be it Thanksgiving or Christmas. It's raccoon, okay? The thing that he's apparently a picky eater. He's quoted as saying that bell peppers and onions are too exotic for him to eat. But the thing that he will eat and that he shared with people in the Panthers coaching staff and in the Panthers media corps is some leftover raccoon that he brought from his family's Thanksgiving dinner. It looks like pulled pork in the container. You would probably be fooled if you didn't know what it was before you tried some, other than you'd probably taste it and find it to be a bit gamey. But Xavier Leggett bringing leftover raccoon that his family makes for holiday meals and passing it out in the locker room is my Friday fire. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And also his accent is hilarious.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. So the Arizona Bowl happening this weekend. Not 100% sure who's playing in it. Just saw this picture a few moments ago. It is my Friday fire. Snoop Dogg inspired end zones because they are now the sponsor. Snoop Dogg, Dre and Snoop Gin and Juice is the sponsor of the Arizona Bowl. And these end zones are the coolest thing I've ever seen. It says Snoop Dogg in one, and it's got this painting of a car going through the desert on the other side. It's a really, really cool looking setup for the Arizona Bowl.
Okay, awesome.
Formerly Barstool's Bowl, I believe.
Oh, really? They ceded the rights? It was too much trouble for Barstool to put on a bowl game last year. They gave it to Snoop and Dre?
Yes.
All right, very good. 615-737-1045 for the opportunity to win some Music City Bowl tickets. What's your Friday fire? Let's start with Derek. Hey, Derek.
Hello. Hey, Buck. So my Friday fire was going to be at least the Vols men and women basketball are doing good. But my Friday fire will be at least I'm not eating raccoon.
It does seem like a kind of food that you'd be okay to avoid. If I never tried raccoon in my life, I'd be all right. What's the most exotic thing you've ever eaten? Thank you for the call, Derek. Remember to stay on hold for the opportunity to win the tickets.
I don't know. I just kind of stick to, the normal meats. Like bison, does that count?
No.
Okay, well then, yeah.
Bison?
Uh-huh.
Is that even still legal? Are people eating bison?
Oh, yeah. Bison burgers are a big thing.
Ugh. Well, I know it's supposed to be healthier for you.
Pretty solid, too.
I don't know what the most exotic thing I've eaten. It's probably some kind of sushi or maybe snail. I've had escargot. 10 out of 10 recommend. Pretty good. Like chicken. Sean is next.
All right. My Friday fire. This past 20th, me and my fiance just got married. So she's now wife.
Congratulations. That's a pretty good one. We appreciate the call. Tony is next. What you got, Tony? Tony's got nothing but dead air.
Great submission.
Caller's really been bringing it this week, man. This has been tough.
So, Sean or Derek?
Oh, man.
Also, we have 5 minutes left.
I can find something to talk about. Relax. Give him to Sean. He just got married. Congratulations.
I could not think of a better honeymoon than the Music City Bowl.
Music City Bowl between Iowa and Mizzou.
Where dreams are made.
Yeah. Goodness. I appreciate you guys' calls. As always, on Friday, 615-737-1045 is your opportunity to win great prizes like Music City Bowl tickets for your Friday Fire. All right. So, some people commenting on the most exotic thing that they've seen. Dave on YouTube says muskrat. Taylor H, bison nacho dip sounds good. Fish tacos, not necessarily exotic. I guess it depends on the fish. Dixie says escargot is disgusting, but to be fair, I ate it on a cruise ship. Yeah, I've never been on a cruise ship. I don't feel like I would do well on a cruise ship for a variety of different reasons. But I assume the snail is not the most fresh on the cruise ship, or at least at the cruise ship buffet, wherever you get those kind of things. So, Music City Bowl will be interesting, even if Luther Burden is not playing for Missouri. That is the thing that I was most intrigued by. Bowl games, speaking of which, just to remind people that Vanderbilt's bowl game against Georgia Tech is today. Vanderbilt with the opportunity to have a winning season, currently at 6-6. 3HL and Blaine and Zach will keep you updated when the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and Vanderbilt meet in the Birmingham Bowl at 2:30 p.m. Central Time today. So worth keeping an eye on there. Georgia Tech currently somewhere between -2.5 and -3.5 for those of you who think we don't talk about Vandy enough around here. Getting into, Giles says, I see the Vols fan base is in an uproar over a Nico Iamaleava Instagram post. Have you seen this Instagram post?
Yes, we can talk about this. He thanked Vols fans in his end-of-season post, you could call it, to Instagram. I want to say it was 2 days ago on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. And people freaked out because they thought he was entering the portal because he thanked Vols fans.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's where we're at right now?
Hey, it's portal season, bud.
That's crazy. Sent the entire Vol Twitter spiraling because they thought Nico was going to hit the portal just because he wished people a Merry Christmas?
Well, they've moved on from that because there's also a rumor Boo Carter might enter the transfer portal.
Oh, good.
Have not seen anything solid or stable on that, so... But, yeah, they're in full-blown freak-out mode.
I'm reading this post right now from Nico. Merry Christmas. First and foremost, to God be the glory. Love you, Mom and Dad, for instilling morals and values in me. To my coaches and brothers, thank you. Thank you for the brotherhood, the time together, all the hard work, and always uplifting me. Rocky Top fans, I appreciate the love and support you pour into me and into our team. Okay, I guess I could see how that might be triggering in some form or fashion because it does feel like a bit of a goodbye.
Is he leaving? Tell me.
Are you one of them? Are you one of these message board people?
It's like an alternate personality.
I swear, I had no idea. Like, I thought I knew Toxic, okay? Just because I have a Twitter. Like, and Twitter is a particularly loud and particularly dumb place a lot of times, even though I love each and every one of you. I had no idea what existed on college football message boards until I started following this account called Message Board Geniuses.
Oh, that's the best account on Twitter.
They post some of the most unhinged stuff. I'm dying to know, like, and I know people are using fake names and all these other things. Some people don't. Some people tell on themselves on the message boards because they're a little careless and don't realize that these things live forever on the internet. I can't even put I couldn't even try to put myself in the headspace that some of these people get into over things like Nico Iamaleava wishing you a Merry Christmas on Instagram and then turning it into a full-blown DEFCON 1 situation.
It's great.
So is the Boo Carter thing real or not?
I have not seen anything real from people in Knoxville that normally have this kind of stuff.
Are you
but
scared?
It is floating out there. Yes, I'm scared. I'm in a perpetual state of scared.
Should Brian Callahan be scared about his job status? Bill Barnwell had an article ranking the 2025 job availabilities among NFL teams, and he had the Titans among one of them. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
12 o'clock on the dot. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. Titans back on the practice field yesterday as they get ready to hit the road one last time in the 2024 season as they head to Jacksonville on Sunday. Non-participants were Tyler Boyd, Otis Reese, Tony Pollard, Amani Hooker, Nick Folk, and Dylan Radens. Wide receivers Colton Dowell and Bryce Oliver both were limited yesterday. In transfer portal news, the Vols lost 4 players yesterday to the portal, as quarterback Gaston Moore, DB Christian Harrison, tight end Holden Stays, and defensive lineman Jason Jenkins all entered their names. That brings the total number of outgoing transfers to 16 for the Vols. And Tennessee running back Dylan Samson has announced he will forego his senior season and declare for the 2025 NFL Draft. In his junior year, Samson ran for 1,491 yards and 22 touchdowns and was named SEC Player of the Year by the Associated Press. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
I'm just going to have to start shaming Jackson with what he says off air and bringing it on air to the point where he'll stop saying things like, I was holding in a burp during that update. That was awful.
Yeah, it didn't feel good.
Welcome back to the show. Happy Friday to all involved. Fueled by Hattie B's hot chicken, apparently Jackson Williams gas. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, Titans have the Jags this weekend. College football playoff stuff, you'll have to wait until next week, though. The bowl games continue on with Vanderbilt later this afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Central Time, kickoff between Vandy and Georgia Tech in the Birmingham Bowl. I would like to draw people's attention, though, to this piece on ESPN.com. Now, we touched on it briefly yesterday, but we didn't get really into the contents of it. Bill Barnwell is a columnist at ESPN. He does a lot of deep dives on all 32 teams. Some of the information in there is good. Some of the discussion around the various teams, because he doesn't cover one specific team, some of it you could probably nitpick from time to time, but for the most part, it's good info. It's not reporting, is what I should first start by saying. This is not a report. But it is a columnist from ESPN who's regularly tasked with looking around the league and studying team performance relative to expectation and the advanced metrics used to determine that analytical expectation, writing a column about ranking the NFL head coaching openings for the 2025 season, the best and the worst jobs. There are 9 teams listed here. One of them is the Titans. The Titans are not currently a job opening. The case for them to be is in this column. If I made you guess the other 8, Jackson, what do you got? Because I know you didn't read this. Huh?
I was on the phone answering Dale's call. So,
how many teams, if the Titans are one, how many, or what are the teams that would have 2025 job openings in the NFL, do you think?
So the Bears and the Jets, obviously.
Yes.
I'm assuming they threw the Cowboys in there.
No.
No. Okay. I'm going to assume. I don't know the other.
The New York Giants.
Oh, the Giants, yeah. Both New York teams.
Jags, Raiders, Saints, Patriots, also another first-year coach. The
Patriots is a weird one.
Well, so are the Titans, because you don't really know what to do with the first-year coach, and you want to blame Will Levis for all of it, but it's not all his fault.
But Drake May has made progress.
Yeah, but the team around him does not reflect a team that is capable of winning despite the quarterback making progress.
Yeah, but were they expected to win this year?
No, but they're also not. It's Boston. They're tired of losing. They're sick of it. I honestly appreciate that the Patriots are even in this discussion, because that to me indicates standards. That's a championship organization. That's the most dominant dynasty in the NFL anywhere. For basically 2 decades, they're running the sports. Now they have 3 wins? No. I love that Patriots fans have that energy. I wish that more Titans fans would be as upset about a 3-win season other than trying to pass it off as, yeah, but. Okay, you can do that if you want to. But there's plenty of other reasons why yeah, but could be a hell of a lot better. So, the 9 teams listed here, again, some with openings, some that have not yet come open, but could. Bears, Dolphins, Giants, Jags, Jets, Patriots, Raiders, Saints, and Titans. He's ranking them according to which would be the best job opening at this point in time. The Saints are the worst, and the cons being their roster, their current roster, and their salary cap situation. They're in hell. They've been moving money around for years since Drew Brees and his contract. They continue to do things like give Alvin Kamara at the end of his year a 3-year extension, which is, I know Vols fans love him personally, and he's still a quality player, but that's a tough look on a team that's got as many financial issues as New Orleans does without a clear and obvious answer at quarterback. The Jets are 8th. The Raiders are 7th. The Titans are the 6th most appealing potential job here. Now, I'm going to read directly from the piece. The pros are the division, because the AFC South is cheeks, and the youth, because they do have a lot of young players who are getting a lot of playtime right now, and that does matter down the road. The cons are missing talent in key spots, which I didn't have to tell you about, and apparently their cap space. Here's what Bill Barnwell writes. The Titans have quickly fallen from being a perennial contender under Coach Mike Vrabel and General Manager John Robinson into what feels like an irrelevant franchise. And that might put the jobs of Coach Brian Callahan and GM Rand Carthon in jeopardy. I add parenthetically, it very well might. I would argue both deserve more time and didn't inherit a great situation from Robinson after some subpar drafts toward the end of his time in Tennessee, but the results this season have been difficult to watch. The core of most great teams is the player they select in the first 3 rounds of the draft, owing 2 mistakes from Robinson, who was fired in December 2022, and disappointing picks by Carthon. Interesting. I don't know how many Titans fans would say that Rand Carthon has a lot of disappointing draft picks.
I mean, Will Levis to this point.
That's the most important one.
What do you think about Skoronski? I think he's been fine.
He's playing better.
He's playing the best ball he's played as a Titan right now.
Feel good about J.C. Latham. Tajay, I don't know.
Tajay, I was with you. I was about to ask you about what you thought. Obviously,
I mean, I don't love the idea of, like, I get trying to find a complimentary piece to Derek. He's a 3rd-round pick, though, on a team that has so many more needs, continues to have more needs than running back, and he's not the starter. Tony Pollard is clearly and obviously the better player.
Yeah, he's been overshadowed by Tony Pollard.
Health hadn't been an issue, but the concussion's obviously popping up more often, and good on him for wearing the Guardian cap in these games. He's trying to make himself available. That's the best possible way to do it, especially if you've had a situation where you've already experienced one concussion and you know how much easier it is to have a recurrence.
He also had a hamstring issue, correct?
Yes. At this point, I wouldn't call Rand Carthon's draft pick. Well, let me just read on, and then we'll parse some of this stuff. How about that? Those core guys consist of 2 defensive linemen, 2018 second-rounder Harold Landry and 2019 first-rounder Jeffrey Simmons, both of whom were on second contracts. There's nobody left on the roster from the 2020 draft. Woof. The only person left from 2021 is Dylan Radins, and he's, subject to some debate and will likely walk in free agency, though we'll see. 2022 class, led by the disastrous decision to essentially trade wideout A.J. Brown for Traylon Burks, appears to have delivered 1 starter in Chig Okonkwo. As Burks has dealt with injuries, cornerback Roger McCreary has Roger hasn't fallen out of favor. That's incorrect. Even though he writes Roger McCreary has fallen out of favor, he's just hurt. Roger hadn't been available. An offensive tackle, NPF has given up 8.5 sacks amid benchings this season. Carthon's drafts, unfortunately, haven't been much better than Robinson's. Peter Skoronski, a first-rounder in 2023, hasn't been consistent as a pass blocker. And 2024 first-rounder J.C. Latham leads the league in sacks allowed. Some blame for those protection issues can be put on the quarterback, but that's 2023 second-rounder Will Levis, who appears to be finished with the organization after 20 starts. All of this is happening with legendary offensive line coach Bill Callahan running things up front, so it's difficult to pin the problems on the coaching. The only Carthon pick who looks like a solid starter is defensive tackle Tavondre Sweat. Now, understanding that he's incorrect about the Roger McCreary stuff, I think he makes a pretty compelling case for the rest of this roster. Now, JC, I feel okay about. And he had a great game against the Colts, specifically against Latu, who's the other first-round pick in the AFC South. He's had some ups and downs, but that's to be expected from a left tackle. And Peter Skoronski has been improved, but Peter Skoronski was also objectively bad last year.
Yeah, I'm feeling okay about the 2 first-round picks. Not great, but okay.
So let's do it this way, because there's still more there, and I think it's worth kind of continuing to peel back the layers on some of this stuff. Are Ran Carthon's drafts good, or were John Robinson's just so bad that in comparison, finding average to below average players that can start for you makes them better than John Robinson's, but doesn't necessarily make them good? That's essentially what Bill Barnwell is making the case for here. That John, just the end of John was I mean, he essentially, and listen, I like John Robinson personally. Maybe I shouldn't have to preface it, but I do feel like when I say something like this, it's a bit of an attack on the person. I mean, it is an attack on the person. He lit this franchise's future on fire with his drafts and the AJ trade. That is not up for debate. He can have put them in position to succeed. He can have taken over a roster from Rustin Webster that was shambles, built a playoff contender, and then pooped the bed the last 3 years. It's awful.
2016 to 2019 were really, really good drafts for John Robinson.
Both of those things can be good. Ran Carthon has not, or both of those things can be so. Ran Carthon has not had a draft like John had in the first 4 years. But
he also hasn't had one like John the last.
No, nothing, nobody. I mean, you would struggle to find a lack of hit rate among three consecutive NFL drafts. Not even the first rounders, but there's not a single player on this roster from 2020. Dylan Radins is the last one from 21. That's crazy. They had, I remember looking this up, they had 11 top 100 draft picks in those 3 drafts alone. They hit on one of them, and that's McCreary. So it is indisputable that person took a jackhammer to whatever viability or whatever you could have built upon coming out of those playoff runs. And it is a huge part of the reason why this franchise, to Bill Barnwell's point, feels irrelevant now. But I don't want to paint the drafts that have come since then as better than they actually are just because they're not horrifyingly bad. We will never know who was most responsible for Will Levis, but the one person who's tasked with owning that the most is the general manager who was here. So it's tough not to look at Will Levis and say, all right, who's responsible for him being here, the current front office that's in place? Who's responsible for building around him and thinking that he was viable to build around? Probably the current front office in place. Who's responsible for hiring a coaching staff that may not necessarily have meshed with Will Levis' skill set, even as they tried to build around him for this 1 year, and they don't necessarily have to tie themselves to it because he can go to the bench and be cheap as a backup, or you can trade him and all these other things. But again, all a part of what was supposed to be a building process that now it feels like they're set back on again. And I don't think that's all Will Levis's fault. So that's basically the case that Bill Barnwell is making here. And I don't think, I disagree about the only viable starter being Tavondre Sweat. I think J.C. Latham is going to end up being a good player, and I think that's mostly fortified by Bill Callahan being here. Like, my confidence in J.C. Latham comes from him, comes from the person that I believe him to be, the work ethic that this person has, the way that he's been able to manage this situation after never having seen this many losses in his football life. He has to be horrified, him and Sweat both, coming from places like Nick Saban's Alabama in the last couple of years of Texas under Sark, to what this has become. You don't lose at this rate in college football unless you're a really, really awful team. So this is tough, and I think that J.C. Latham is somebody that they can build around. But essentially, well, we can continue to parse this because there's more info in there. And the question becomes, for Titans fans, and I'll ask you this, 615-737-1045, if this team ends up with the number 1 overall pick, does that present an open door for you to clean house and restart more cleanly? Because that's a question that A to Z Sports posed earlier this week, and I like it, so I'm going to borrow it. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Lucas Panzica here to tell you about Hattie B's, where you should go for lunch today at any one of their 7 locations. The Factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, even the Nashville Airport, and now at Nissan Stadium. Remember, the Factory at Franklin location is open at 7 a.m. for breakfast. If you want to skip the line, download the Hattie B's app. Order for pickup and skip the line. Walk in, get your Hattie B's famous hot chicken, and head right back to the office. By the way, you get a free dessert just by downloading the Hattie B's app. Hattie B's, a family-run restaurant serving up your favorite Southern food and authentic Nashville hot chicken. It is the best in town. Bring the heat to your event. If you're having a party, wedding, or corporate function, maybe a holiday party, let Hattie be your guest of honor. Go to HattieB.com and download the Hattie B's app today.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is the number. So, this Bill Barnwell article detailing the list of potential openings in 2025 that has the Titans ranked as one of the jobs that he believes could be or potentially should be open next year. The Jags he ranks as the most appealing job because of the quarterback, the weak division, patient ownership location, a high draft pick, and regression to the mean coming because the Jags surely cannot be as bad. Trevor Lawrence surely cannot be as bad whenever he returns from injury as things have currently shown. So the list again is the Jags 1, Dolphins 2, which would be the biggest surprise if Mike McDaniel ended up out there. Bears 3, Patriots 4, Giants 5, Tennessee as the 6th out of 9 potential job openings in 2025. And it's honestly I'm not going to say the best case because that's not how I want to position it, but it's the strongest case, let's say, into changing things in the front office as opposed to where a lot of the focal point seems to have been from the fans, which is on changing coaching staffs. Most people, I think, largely are still willing to either give Rand Carthon and the front office, the rest of the front office, the benefit of the doubt versus, I do think that percentage is growing on people who are not satisfied with what the results have been in 2 off seasons trying to pick this thing back up and where the product has only gotten worse in the last 2 years. They were a 7-win team in 2022. They then were a 6-win team last year. Now they would be lucky to get 4 with 2 games remaining against the Jags on the road and the Texans at home. And Bill Barnwell's case is that the problem is that the roster was bad, but the roster hasn't appreciably improved enough based on 2 off seasons of trying to put it back together. So we've talked about the fact that the draft classes, they're not catastrophically bad like they were under John Robinson, but they're not good enough either. And the fact that they've gotten worse from those less talented teams is concerning. So he goes from the draft classes that he calls disappointing to the free agency strategy, which he, essentially questions that there's been much strategy at all. Quote, on top of that, the Titans already have been aggressive in adding veteran talent with mostly disappointing results. Receiver Calvin Ridley has one 100-yard game in his first season with the team and just turned 30. Cornerback L'Jarius Sneed has sat out most of his debut season in Tennessee because of injuries. Center Lloyd Cushenberry tore his Achilles in November and could be limited to start 2025. I add parenthetically, that's the expectation. Corner Chido Awuzie has played only 6 games this season and might not be the same player we saw before he tore his ACL with the Bengals in 2022. He also turns 30 before next season. Other mid-tier signings such as linebacker Kenneth Murray, injured on IR, I add, and offensive tackle Andre Dillard have been disasters. Kenneth Murray hasn't been good, for sure, and they're probably getting as much production out of, cheap dudes like Jack Gibbons when he's been available, or Luke Gifford before he went down with a concussion, or even Otis Reese, honestly, for the level of play that Kenneth Murray has actually brought. He's got higher-end traits. We get that. But on aggregate, are they outright better players? You could probably debate that. Tony Pollard, Arden Key, those have been the exceptions. And it's kind of crazy that we're putting Arden Key in that category, given that they clearly have needs on the edge. But, arguably, Arden's been the more productive player in 2024 than Harold has. Have they done a good enough job in the last 2 seasons of putting this thing back together? There's not a soul among you that could argue yes. If your argument is, well, it was never supposed to be really competitive in 2024, I'll hear you. I picked them to win 7 games. That's meaningfully competitive, and that's what they told you on the front end. That was their whole goal. Certainly not a 3-win season to follow up a 6-win season. Should they get more time? Yeah, probably. I don't know how the owner feels about that question, though. The average lifespan on coaches has certainly gone down. Not lifespan, tenure. We're not killing coaches at a frequent rate or a more frequent rate than the job was probably already impacting their health and well-being, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's a tough job, even if it is just sports. Coaches on average get about 3 years. We're coming up on the 3rd offseason for this front office. What do they have to show for it? Is it Tony Pollard and Arden Key? I'd put J.C. Latham and Tavondre Sweat in that mix.
Do you put Skoronski in that mix?
They spent the 11th overall pick on him. I would like for him to be better. But he's not outright bad, so I will. He's a starting NFL player.
Yeah, he's starting caliber NFL player. But with the 11th pick, you're right.
That's really tough.
Better.
That's really tough. Like, I need Quentin Nelson. I know Quentin Nelson was like the 5th pick, which is still crazy. The Colts spent the 5th overall pick on a guard, but whatever. I would like for him to be better. I am willing to count it because he is playing better, and I think that Bill Callahan's impact on that is notable. Is that enough, though? This team has one player who might be, Jeff Simmons might be considered a star player in the league. Jeff Simmons is a good player. Jeff Simmons is a high-energy player. Can you make the argument that he's the best at his position? Definitively no. You would put him behind Chris Jones. You would put him behind Dexter Lawrence, who was drafted, I think, 2 spots ahead of Jeff and didn't start as well as Jeff did. But I know he got shut down this year for the Giants because he also sustained injury, but he was unstoppable, unblockable, Dexter Lawrence. Then you get into the Quinnen Williams, Jeff conversation. You could probably make that more of a conversation than you can at the top of the position, but you need a star player on this roster. They've had multiple swings in free agency and the draft to find that kind of talent that's going to help set them over the top. They had a top 10 draft pick, and they needed to get a left tackle. They would have taken a tackle, whether it was Alt or Latham. They should get 3 off seasons. But it's a really tough thing to look at it and say you've had infinitely more opportunities, infinitely more resources to invest here because you got out of cap jail last year and you just signed a great many contracts for long-term deals, 3 years, 4 years. Ridley a 4-year, Snead a 4-year, Cheeto a 3-year, Cushenberry a 4-year. I need to go double check that. I want to say it's 4.
Would you put Cushenberry in that offseason with Tony Pollard and Latham and Skoronski and Arden Key? Or Calvin Ridley?
Ridley, no.
Ridley, no at all?
No. No, it's not enough. He knows that. And it's not his. I mean, he's dependent on the quarterback, which the best case for Calvin Ridley being a plus here is look at his quarterback play.
Yeah, and he's only 143 yards away from a 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, but that was basically the argument to keep him in Jacksonville, and Jags fans couldn't move on from him fast enough. I'm not saying that they're right, because Trevor Lawrence has also had a great many issues that we didn't expect to have around Trevor Lawrence. But I don't know. I don't think I could put Ridley in that category.
What about Lloyd? Obviously, the injury is a big hurt. But
yeah, and I can't ding them for the Achilles. There's no way that's foreseeable. But it's indisputably going to have an impact on next year. They need a center. Brunskill's been all right. He's been good. He's a backup for sure. He's a backup, and that may be his best backup position between center and guard. And he's held it down. They've had good performances. You can pin a lot of the sacks, specifically on the quarterback. Will Levis, not Mason Rudolph. Mason gets rid of it too quickly. But indisputably, that's going to have carryover into their 2025. The question is, have they set themselves up in the best possible position for offseason number 3 under this front office? It's really tough because of the amount of money that they spent. They've got cap space. They've got wiggle room. But, I mean, could they, in good conscience, if, say Sam Darnold became available, could they, in good conscience, give out a mega contract to Sam Darnold?
I don't think you can.
Exactly.
Just because the situation that he is in Minnesota is so vastly different than what he's going to come into here in Nashville.
The one thing that the chat brings up that does need to be mentioned is DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins was a plus. They traded him away. It was the right decision. Rand Carthon gets credit for D-Hop. But also, in the same way that people try to parse the Levis thing on who's most responsible for Hopkins being here, Rand got it done. D-Hop has brought up Rand multiple times and how he was treated like family. He also had a great deal of respect for Vrabel and the money. But they get credit for it.
What about Ernest Jones?
No. They
Really?
need a linebacker. I know it didn't matter. I know that they weren't going nowhere at the trade deadline. I know it's a 4th-round pick, but Jerome Baker has done nothing.
But you flipped him for more pick. I mean, I feel like that's a win.
I don't know, man. He's made such a difference in Seattle's defense. Why couldn't you have built around Ernest Jones? You're still chasing linebacker, aren't you?
Yeah, tried to get David Long on Monday.
And the thing on the front end was Ernest Jones, they signed 2 players that did things too similarly. Now, maybe Chance Campbell or Garrett Wallow was getting some snaps with the starting team. Maybe that's different if those 2 players don't get injured for the year in training camp and you don't ever get a chance to see them. All these things can be parsed, and that matters here because you're talking about people's job viabilities. And the question is, have they done a good enough job to keep their jobs? 3 wins is tough to justify no matter how you cut it. Even though there is a lot of promise and a lot of youth on this roster, I do think that the perspective there is important. Is it as bad as John Robinson's drafts? Obviously, no. Is it good enough to fix your franchise? Has the strategy been good enough to fix your franchise? The answer is definitively no. We're not even sure if they're on the right track yet because they're still chasing quarterback. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Speaking of that, Brian Callahan was asked a question earlier this week about his job security and whether or not he feels, basically, if he was Amy Adams-Strunk, would he feel comfortable continuing on with this for another year? This was the press conference from Monday.
If you're Amy watching this,
yeah.
What would you be thinking if you're owner of a football team watching first-year coach?
The best part about that is that's not my job. My job is to coach the football team and get ready to go play Jacksonville. That's the only thing that I focus on, and anything other than that is out of my control. And I do the best I can every day I walk in here. And it's not for me to make any conjecture on and make any statements on. I'm just trying to coach the football team as best I possibly can and try to go get a win against Jacksonville.
Do you expect you're going to have to make a case to her when this is over?
I have no idea. We talk regularly and we have conversations about all the things that go on. So, don't know.
So, I mean, I get it from his perspective when we talked about it. How much credence can you actually give that? But there's no question it doesn't loom over what's going on. There's also, Jackson, something in the chat. I may or may not have sent it. If I didn't send it in the group text, it's on Paul Kaharski's timeline. Bill Callahan talking about a screenshot that was taken of this Colts game, some words that he was trying to pass to his son. Bill Callahan, who's obviously been a head coach before at multiple levels, the NFL level, the college football level, Nebraska and the Raiders. And kind of the words of wisdom that Bill Callahan, because that's part of Bill Callahan's job here too. He's trying to help his son get through it. That's a very human thing, man. To see your kid, and I say this as somebody who doesn't have kids, so those of you with children could speak on this much better than I can. But I imagine it's a very human thing to see your child going through something, to realize a lifelong dream, and to have it go so horridly with you there to support him. Now, it's a best possible case for Brian that he does have his dad to lean on here, because I can't imagine how difficult this would be to go through it, how isolating it would be to go through it and to not have the questions and to not have the perspective of somebody who is clearly earned and is given a great deal of respect for his acumen. Whether or not he was a good head coach or not, he's an excellent position coach and is well respected around the league, and this guy has seen it and done it. So Bill Callahan, in media availability with assistants yesterday, was asked about any words of wisdom that he was seen passing on to his son Brian on the sideline on Sunday.
Just stay intact with the plan. Don't deviate. Don't let anything jar you, and just keep moving along, And I think that sometimes there's things that you can control and things you can't, So not overreact to anything and just maintain, composure, which he's shown, and come back and keep doing what we're doing. Have belief in the system and what you're doing. I think that's really the crux of anything, of any program and any situation that a head coach is in.
What initiated that?
I don't know. I just visited with them, and we were talking about the running game, and I thought we're going to have to change gears here a little bit, and we're going to have to catch up and emphasize. So, don't worry about trying to get runs in. Just go ahead and just keep doing what you got to do. Just trying to.
So Bill Callahan is a calming presence there, which helps because it should shock nobody to know that there are very many people in that building who are deeply unhappy because of their professional circumstance, because they also bought into the new vision, and because the vision has gone absolutely nowhere, it's regressed. So it shouldn't surprise you to know that somebody like Bill Callahan would help that in the amount of different situations that he's seen, the amount of media scrutiny he's been under as a former NFL head coach, and I know it's different in the social media era. And certainly with people like, anybody, and including me, talking heads who are talking about your job on a regular basis in very public places. It's unpleasant. It's something that you have to go through, and it's something that you have to put your head down and get through if you're capable of it. Now, if you wanted proof of concept there, you would look at what Bill Callahan is saying to him and say, okay, well, they did that in the second half. They got back into the game. I've hesitated to give them credit for making that a one-score game because they first got down 38-7 and obviously lost. And I'm not interested in moral victories or participation trophy type of conversations when it comes to professional football. The compensation is the participation trophy. Now go out there and win a game. They do some things that make you think that they can build on something. And then they just turn around the next week and they do nothing with it. I wish I had a better answer on who to blame most for that. But I think the more that we've gone along with this, and the more, just the more time that I've covered seasons, I've never covered a season like this. Obviously, I know the Titans have had down seasons like that, but I just mean in terms of my perspective, getting to see and talk to these people on a daily basis and see where everybody's at based on parallels that I can draw in previous staffs and previous administrations and previous years with previous rosters. This is a really hard thing to justify, no matter how many excuses can be made. And the players get way more blame than I think that they deserve. It's a way easier conversation to blame players for it. And I think we've kind of, whether it's Madden or fantasy football or all these other things, when you get disappointed by a player's specific output, you go at them. I know some of you will go at them on social media, or you'll specifically pin that blame on it when there are other way bigger themes that can contribute directly to whether that player performs or not. All these things should be taken into account. We're not saying fire anybody right now. We can have reflective conversations on this season when the season is finally over. I know there's been a lot of conversation out there about things that I've said about what the front office is thinking on quarterback stuff, things that Teron Davenport of ESPN have reported, how there seems to be some level of definitiveness. Is that a word? I think it is.
That's a word.
Okay. I hope so.
Good stuff, bud.
Well, I'm criticizing other people's job performances and then, making up words on the radio with zero consequence. Point being that there's already some level of train of thought or school of thought about what kind of quarterback this franchise will move forward with, and whether it's even premature to be having those discussions because the season's not over yet. And the coach, I saw Kaharski make this point, which I really thought was a good one. Coaches don't have time to watch college football tape right now. They're not scouting Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward yet. They're trying to beat the Jags on Sunday. So any level of definite thought around quarterback solutions can't be definite if the coach hasn't had time to give his input yet. All these things are things that have to be worked through. I don't know whether Titans fans, whether the majority of Titans fans, again, I wouldn't speak for you. I don't know what the level of trust in the it's not just in the people that are doing the jobs right now, but in the people doing these jobs to get it right. Have you seen enough? That's the simplest way that I can ask the question. Have you seen enough to trust front office and coaching to get this right moving forward instead of just pinning it on Will Levis and going about your day? That's really what's at the crux of the argument. And that's the thing that they're going to have to sell to the person most responsible for letting them keep their jobs or not. Last call for phone calls. If you got them, 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll do that and update some polls coming up next. All right. Last segment of the week. Thanks for hanging out. Not done with me just yet, though. Got some Lee Company countdown to kickoff stuff to do with you on Sunday. That'll be fun. With Kayla and Brad, no matter how bad it is, we still have fun on the pregame show. So you can come hang out there with us. Blaine is off this week, so it'll just be the three of us, the two of them in studio, and me from Jacksonville. Last call for phone calls, if you got them. 615-737-1045 is the number. Before we get to the phones, Jackson, you have injury updates?
I do. Out for the Titans on Sunday, kicker Nick Folk, offensive guard Dylan Radens, linebacker Otis Reese, and Colton Dowell will not be activated this week. Matthew Wright will be called up from the practice squad Saturday and kick for the Titans on Sunday. Corey Levin will start at center with Daniel Brunskill moving to right guard.
Okay. So
and Luke Gifford will make the defensive calls.
Okay. Interesting. So no Nick Folk again.
No Nick Folk again.
That's tough. That's the one thing that I trust about this football team at this point in time. Him and Morgan Cox. They can do no wrong. Oh, backup offensive line gets even more suspect. Brunskill at guard. Levin, I don't know. I always thought Corey Levin was going to turn into something here, and that never really stuck with a couple of different offensive. Well, he's bounced around. He's back, and he's been here for a couple of years again, but he was with the Broncos for a period of time. He was with the Bears. I thought that was something that was going to turn into more than it was, but either way, he gets another opportunity on Sunday. See if they can keep Mason Rudolph clean enough to beat the Jags. And this time around, an offensive touchdown, a trip to the red. They've been much better in the red zone. To their credit, they deserve credit for that. I know people aren't interested in the moral victories type of stuff, but they have been better in the red zone. Mason Rudolph gives them a better chance to score offensive touchdowns. They cannot get down 38-7 against the Jags.
Mason Rudolph is has been the quarterback for the two of the three Titans' 30-point performances this season.
Yeah, he's the better quarterback, which is something, if you're a Titans fan, you wish that they could have figured it out earlier instead of riding it out with Will. But we talked about the costliness of Levis's injury and how that kind of set back the clock a little bit on all the things that led them to this point at this time. Phone calls. Daniel's next.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking my call. We were talking about last segment. Did we trust that this was going to be turned around if we drafted a quarterback or whatever the case is? And I think the answer is no, because this team has done nothing in 25 years that suggests that they're going to develop a quarterback since they've come to Tennessee, that is. So I don't think that we should hold out any hope of them drafting quarterback, because even if they do, what are they going to do with them? And the answer is nothing if we go off history. So, hopefully we draft and go inside out and try to fix problems from the line, and then, bridge a quarterback and see if we can do something then. But no hope whatsoever for them to turn it around in the quarterback spot, because the history shows they can't do that.
Thanks for the call, Daniel. So I'm inclined to agree with your strategy, but not your logic. Like, I don't really care what's happened in years. And I mean, obviously, immediate history matters a great deal more than 26 years of Titans football. Things that happened under Jeff Fisher and Floyd Reese are no longer relevant to this team. So by that logic, I kind of struggle with the idea of no quarterbacks at all, because historically the franchise can't get it right. You have gotten it right. You've gotten Steve McNair right. Vince Young was exciting.
He was fun.
I think they got Marcus right. Marcus's body just wasn't right. I think the Mariota pick I don't know. It's a hypothetical. I have no idea how that would have turned out. But there was reason to believe that if Marcus's body didn't fail him as dramatically as it did at the end, that the player that they got on the front end was capable of being an NFL starter.
Yeah, he was a really good player in 2016 before his injury.
I never thought that Friday, December 27th, in the year of the Rona 2024, I would be talking about how much better Marcus Mariota, how much better a level of quarterback play that Marcus Mariota provided to this franchise than it's currently seeing. But them's the breaks, kids. Is the name of the caller Vol Calls?
Yep.
All right, we'll do that. What's up?
Hey, buddy. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I just got, this is hypothetical, but if the Kansas City Chiefs did not have the quarterback they have right now, where would they be in the NFL? And I know that's really hypothetical, because no one knows. And because if we have a better quarterback at Titans, well, where would we be? We don't know. Y'all are the kings of Monday armchair quarterbacks and so forth. So just give me that kind of hypothetical thing. Where would the Chiefs be if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes? And I'll hang up and I won't listen.
Thanks for the call. Where would the Chiefs? It's an impossible thing to answer, right? Because they're they're back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions. They won 3 with him. I have no idea if it's still Alex Smith. Do they peter out in the playoffs the way that the Chiefs would have good regular season records and then not? And yeah, you can do the hypothetical of, what if the Titans had a good quarterback and the Chiefs had a bad quarterback?
Yeah, we don't know who they would have drafted between now and then.
The other part of this is that speaks to a level of how people process this, or some people process this. I know people go about the thought processes differently, but waiting and wishing and hoping and dreaming about the quarterback that's going to come in and save everybody. I feel like I'm in reruns, but we've talked about this. It doesn't happen. That's not a strategy. That's just prayer to a certain extent. Please, football gods, deliver this particular franchise from football purgatory by dropping the quarterback into their laps. C.J. Stroud, if you'd have ended up with C.J. Stroud, you would have been happy about it. And C.J. Stroud still probably would have had some level of struggle that he's experiencing right now in Houston because his offensive line play took a dip, and he's missed some of his receivers due to injury throughout the course of the season, and they've had a really hard time leveling out because it's still an inexperienced player. It's tough to do this with young quarterbacks. So the best option is experience, I think, especially for a team like this. That's why they're going with Mason Rudolph. He's just been able to do more stuff. He gives them more. Even if they are very, very limited, he still gives them more opportunity to operate, and that's ultimately why this looks the way that it does. You ready for some rapid-fire polls? Yeah.
These are the polls, and they're presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Who should be the NFL MVP leader? Associate producer of the Buck Rising Show, He Hate Me, says Lamar Jackson.
My pick would be Lamar. Lamar has been excellent. Lamar is electric. So is Josh Allen. Lamar is still doing it at a higher level as the defending MVP.
Where would the Titans rank as a potential job opening in 2025? John says dead last. The collaboration thing ain't working.
No, the Saints are dead last, but it'd be tough for me to sell the Titans to anybody in 2025.
What is the most interesting thing you can learn about the Titans on Sunday? Mark says, where are we picking the draft?
Can they win a damn divisional game?
They won one.
They didn't score an offensive touchdown, though, the last time these two teams met. Can they do it with Mason Rudolph? If the bottom doesn't fall out, can you win a game? I'm still waiting.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Fun week. Lucas back on Monday. College football playoff discussion will be upon us. We'll see what happens in Jacksonville on Sunday. I'll talk to you there from the booth.